Hello and welcome. Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant and just sort of have to keep reminding you again and again because I don't know, sometimes people still ask, are you a consultant and can we avail your services? And yeah, of course we can because that's what I do for a living. But today is all about answering your questions. I promised you yesterday, if you had joined me for my live stream, that I will do this today and only talk about your questions and only your questions and nothing other than your questions. So that's the reason why I'm here. Disclaimer, first of all, there is a possible lag in the audio video as it was yesterday. The internet connection where I am as of right now is not the best, and therefore please expect a lag. Hopefully the audio quality will remain consistent, but video might sort of go in and out, flash. Super chats, they're open. You're more than welcome to avail of super chats, but please do note that there is no obligation for me to respond to those questions. If you've just made a super chat, I am not asking you to do super chats. Please don't do it if you don't have to. I will try and answer as many questions as I can, time permitting. Also, finally, it has happened in the past that when I'm answering these questions, there is only very little background information available. So I have to answer the question based on whatever is mentioned over there. And sometimes there might be more to it, which could basically means that the information I'm sharing with you or whatever I'm saying might not apply. So whatever is being said, please do your due diligence before you make any kind of an immigration decision in your application. It's extremely important. And of course, if you wish to book, if you wish to discuss your application, your details in much more details so that we can understand the background, then I would recommend that you please use this link here. Yes, please use this link and make an appointment so we can discuss your application, your details, your background one-on-one in more details to understand what would be the applicable issues there. Having said that, let's get cracking, starting with the first question here. It says, from Montreal, my postgraduate work permit and my wife's open work permit has 1.5 years left. Okay, the CRS is 470. Baby is due Jan 25. I'm not I don't know what it means. Sweet for French. Is closed work permit better or my wife pursue a master's? Please discuss about challenges. Okay. While I will try to answer as many questions as possible, I would try to answer those questions which are more generic in the sense that they apply to more people than one very specific situation here. I will try and do that. I will obviously not want to answer questions with regards to your individual profile, your individual chances for permanent resident. I would also not be willing to sort of go into what the chances with regards to CRS scores are, because to be very honest, I don't know. I do expect most 500s to get cleared out at some point of time as we head into 2025, but there is no way for me to have any intelligent way of speculating what kind of scores are going to get drawn out at which point of time. Okay, clear? Right. So this one says he has 1.5 years work permit left. Score is 470. With 470, I really don't know what to tell you, in the sense like you will need to get that score up. How you do it is entirely up to you. Whether your spouse chooses to study master's degree, always bear in mind that if you choose to go the master's degree route, then there is a very huge cost involved. On an average, you would be spending between $30,000 to $50,000 on a master's degree. So bear that in mind when you're looking at these options. Obviously, whenever you are not able to crack the CRS score, that gives you only 2 or 3 other options. First one is French. Learn French if you can, then you have an opportunity within the Francophone category. Of course, that continues or not is something to be seen, but I think Francophone categories will continue. Second would be gain work experience in a priority occupation. That priority occupation at this point of time that we know of is healthcare and trades. And the third one is continue to look for employers within the provincial nominee programs, eligibility criteria to see if they can support you for your application. These will be the 3 broad areas and how you can then look for PR pathways. These are the 3 broad pathways applicable to everybody. So everybody and anybody who is unable to score the CRS score at a level where they can easily get invited and express entry, then the options are extremely limited as of right now. So no matter how many times in how many different ways or modalities you may ask me the same question, it's going to be pretty much the same. Francophone, French speakers proficiency category, if you wish, that is one option. Uh, of course, improving your CRS score by way of your English language should be your first, then your francophones, and the adding the French as a second language. Provincial nominee programs, if you can find an employer who can help you with that, and gaining work experience in a priority occupation that can then make you eligible under a category draw even with a lower CRS code. This is pretty much going to be applicable across the board to most of your questions, most of you who are interested in figuring out what are the possible pathways. And that's basically how it will roll. Let's see. Tejbir says, experience letter says I worked till 6th of October, but already left Canada for vacation to India on 2nd October. Official last working day was 30th of September. Will this cause any issue? Do I need to get it corrected or no? Well, usually the experience letters would always give a date by which or what your official date of employment was, or rather, sometimes even your notice period is taken into account, or whatever is considered as your last day in the company. You could have left earlier, you could have taken your annual leave, you could have taken your paid leave, you could have reported sick, whatever that might be, but your relationship with the employer would be considered until the day you are on record. So if that is a period of time for which you cannot claim points, then you can, in your work history, mention till the last actual paid working day, in your case, 30th of September. And then you can always add a brief letter of explanation with your work experience documents to explain this anomaly or this gap of 5 to 6 days that you might have there. Hardev says, I got my ECOPR for CEC inland. Can I travel to India and get married and apply for sponsorship? This will not impact my eligibility in any case. Okay, so you have received your ECOPR. That's basically the end of your express entry. That's the end of express entry, right? For you, you are a permanent resident of Canada. Congratulations. So from here on, everything that has to do with permanent residence, that is what's going to affect you. So if you now choose to go back to your home country or whichever country that might be, and you get married, then yes, you are eligible to sponsor your spouse under the spousal sponsorship application. And there is no eligibility here in terms of your PR for any manner. So you are now a permanent resident because you have an ECOPR. By all means, get married if you wish to, and then sponsor your spouse. There is no problem, and it doesn't impact any eligibility for that matter. I'm not sure why you are concerned about eligibility, because you have your ECOPR means you're a permanent resident now. Congratulations. Parth says, for PR app, I'm assuming it's application, is it okay to just mention the jobs we did in Canada in personal history, or do we have to provide offer letters and pay stubs for that? Well, this is a very frequently asked question as to what do you show in your work history, or do you need documents for everything that you have worked in or not? So just to sort of put it in perspective, your work history in your express entry application is those periods of work for which you are claiming points. Foreign work experience or Canadian work experience. And for anything that you are claiming points, you have to provide documentation. Anything other than this work experience for which you are not claiming points, part-time, internships, co-op, voluntary work experience, all of those activities, because you must disclose them, that will all go in your personal history. And anything that goes in your personal history, you do not need to provide any documentations for it upfront, at least, unless IRCC specifically asks for it because they wish to conduct some detailed background check or they need that information for some other reasons. Other than that, you don't need to provide any documentation for any of your work experiences that are included in your personal history. I hope that explains and helps. Can I visit US? He has a valid visa with AOR of my spousal PR, implied bridge open work permit status, and a valid SOWP until May. Where to back my BOWP? Now, there are so many mixed situations here. You have an AOR of your spousal PR application. Then how do you have a bridge open work permit? Okay, something is not right in this question, because if you have a spousal PR, then you cannot have a bridge open work permit. Bridge open work permit does not apply to spousal sponsorship applications. So something not right with that application, and therefore I can't really get any clarity there. Okay, Tejbir says, salary credit. My bank statement neither says it as salary nor company name. It shows as UPI with owner name. Will this count as salary or no? Well, if there is a consistent deposit of a similar amount repeatedly over several periods of month, then yes, it would still indicate as salary. In lot of ways, in lot of transactions, it doesn't say salary, it doesn't say the company's name, but as long as there is a credit, there is a deposit on a consistent period of time, consistent days, then that would still count as salary. You don't have to be worried about that. Flagpole for postgraduate work permit. P1 last entered Canada should be, again, I'm not sure. So you're probably asking me what would be the last date of entry into Canada for your portal email that is being asked of you. Yes, you can enter that date. If you have flagpole, you can say that this was the last date you entered Canada. That is absolutely fine. But don't get too stuck up on that date. It won't really make any difference. You can also say your previous date of actual arrival in Canada, whatever that was, and that would also be equally correct. Satinder says, received ECOPR with marital status as separated, even though I have sent a divorce decree to IRCC after P2. Is there anything should I need to do? Applied PR as legally separated. No, you don't really need to do anything. The reason why they may have not done much about it is because as a separated person with your marital status, you have already provided the required documentation. They were satisfied with your marital status and that they have finalized your PR. So even if you are now divorced, it wouldn't have really impacted your application in any manner because they wouldn't really have to do any additional checks to finalize your application. Therefore, there is a possibility that status has not been updated. It will not have any impact in your application. It will not create any issues. You don't have to do really anything. But now that you are a permanent resident, congratulations. But don't worry about it. It's not going to make any difference here. I submitted Portal 2 on 17th of October. When can I expect ECOPR? Well, first of all, congratulations. This is always a good news and sigh of relief when you see that portal emails coming through. It is already has been established by several people that their COPRs are being delayed exorbitantly. Right? There's a long delay in their COPRs being issued after their portal emails have come in. And there are various reasons for it, but one of them which is coming up quite often is that it's understood that IRCC has achieved their 2024's permanent resident target, so they have slowed down the entire process. Also, what could be the reason is the actual visa office, which is who's processing your COPR or your final application or the final stage of your application. They may have extensive backlogs, or they may have an extensive, processing time that they are facing, and therefore that might be delayed. I would certainly not be too worried about it. I think it will come through, but you can always send an email back to the address from where you got your first request, asking them for an update and letting them know that it's taking extremely long and you're quite worried about it. But don't have to worry about it. Can I use high school diploma obtained in adult education in Ontario while on open work permit for home support pathway? Can I use high school diploma obtained in adult education in Ontario while on open work permit for home support pathway? I'm not really sure where this question is coming from, because first of all, there is no home support pathway. At this point of time, that home support program, if you're talking about that specific program, that program is out in the air. That new program will be launched next year. We do not know what the criteria is. That's number one. Number two, you obtained a high school diploma. So if you have obtained a high school diploma, that counts as that counts as a high school diploma. So I'm not really able to understand what exactly is the concern or a query here. I apologize. SK, I'm sorry, there's no question here. Gurjeet Kaur, there's no question here. George Thomas, there's no question here. And Vamsi Krishna, sorry, there's no question here. Do you think healthcare draw would touch 470, 490s in the next draw? Again, as I said earlier, it's very difficult for me to speculate any ranges, any scores, because no one knows. And that is the reason why you can't speculate all these scores or these ranges is because we don't know, first of all, how many candidates are there in the express entry pool with a specific score or a specific background or work experience. That's number one. Number two, we also do not know when IRCC will conduct their next draw and how many invitations will be issued. In the absence of these very critical numbers, you really cannot ascertain what kind of scores, when the draws will happen, and what kind of scores will be invited. Yeah, we can all, hope and pray and predict and throw the numbers out, but they will have absolutely no credibility in any sense at this point of time. Can I apply for CEC while staying in India, and what's the difference in terms of timeline with applying from India than Canada? Well, first of all, there isn't much difference. I do not know why people stress too much about applying from inside Canada, outside Canada. The additional process time from outside Canada is the fact of you getting a passport request and then you having to send your passport for visa stamping and then coming to Canada and activating your status as a permanent resident, versus a person who's already inside Canada gets a virtual landing and then they get the ECOPR. Pretty fast, quick, seamless. As of right now, I wouldn't say so because it's really being delayed, but that's pretty much the only difference. Other than that, outside Canada, inside Canada could also vary depending on what is the visa processing center, where are the applications being processed, what kind of backlogs they might be facing. Is there any political situation there which is creating a longer delay? But if you do not have the option of applying from inside Canada, then it shouldn't really matter, right, how much time, because there is no option. And as I said, I wouldn't be too stressed about how much time, etc. As long as I'm able to apply, as long as I'm able to submit an application, get an ITA, that should be the biggest priority or concern. Due to passport expiry, says Bhagwan Singh, applied for spousal work permit extension in August. Should have got extended till 2nd December. Decision is not yet made. Got ITA spouse accompanying file. Filed bridge open work permit and spouse open work permit applied in new application. What to do for previous extension applied? Web form, document required. Okay, good question. Well, your first one is probably going to get refused because the maximum duration it could have been approved was till 2nd December. We're already on the 1st of December, so there is hardly going to be any decision on that. And even if they do give you an approval on that, it would be for a very, very few days. So nothing much to be done there. You would certainly be on an implied status until the decision is made. So your spouse can continue working until the decision is made. Once the decision comes, which is going to be of a refusal, then your spouse will have to stop working and will have to wait till the decision is made on the new extension application that you have filed. Your spouse can continue staying in Canada. So you see, whenever you make an application for an extension or for an extension, basically. So you're on a work permit, making an application for extension, or you are on a study permit, you're making an application for studying or extension for study permit. You go on what is referred to as an implied status if you make the application before the expiry. Now, when you make an implied status, two things happen. First of all, you are given the authorization to continue staying in Canada. And second is you are given authorization to either work or either study, depending on your previous status in Canada. So these are the two authorizations that are given to you automatically under your implied status. Now, in your situation, what will happen is that because you made another application for your spouse work permit extension, while your first one was still being processed, you would continue to get the authorization to continue staying in Canada. But your authorization to work cannot be extended. It will end once the first application has been decided upon. Just to clarify again, and I know it can be quite confusing when we talk about these things, and therefore I'm not going to refer to any specific sections of the law because it just sort of completely gongs you up there. So just to give you this very, very simply, once you get the decision of your first application, if it's a refusal, then your spouse must stop working because the authorization to continue working is no longer applicable. But your spouse can continue staying in Canada until the decision of your second application is made, and hopefully that gets approved. And if it is approved as a work permit, your spouse can start working again. I hope that clarifies. My map says my COPR got cancelled post-marriage web form. New column kit app forms created in portal for wife, but no forms received. Last date is 15th of December on portal. Raised web form, checked spam, but no response. I'm sorry, but I don't understand your question. When you say no forms received, who are you expecting to receive the forms from? Because if you're expecting that IRCC will send you the forms, IRCC will not send you the forms. What you need to do is you need to go onto the IRCC website, You need to, or you can always Google for it. So just Google IRCC forms and guides. Let me just show it to you. Share screen, give me the tab. Yeah, here is the tab. So if you just Google for IRCC forms and guides, let me just take your question away from here so that's more clear. So if you just Google for this IRCC forms and guides, just going to increase this a bit. Yeah, just put IRCC forms and guides. You will get this first link, find an IRCC application package or form. Click on this. This should open up a page where you can download any kind of a form or a guide that you wish from IRCC. Here it will ask you find an IRCC application package or form. Click on form. Here, just type the forms that you are required to complete. In your case, there would be at least 4 different forms, I think 3 to 4 different forms that would be required. You would require 0008, so you could actually put 008, and you would have the generic application form for Canada. You could click on this, download this form, complete the form. Then you would need form number 5669. Please download this form, schedule a background, this particular one. Download this form, complete this form, and then you can upload it to IRCC. You would also need 5406, that is the additional family information form. You would also need, I think it is 5462, no, 5662. Oh, keep forgetting. Wait. Travel is the supplementary travel form. My God, I'm like 5562. Sorry. So the form number would be 5562. That's the form that you would need. So these are primarily the 4 forms you would need. Also, another way of doing this would be you can always check that document you received from IRCC, the application kit. Click on the links that have been provided to you. Those links also should open up forms that you can then download and then complete those forms. And then if there is a placeholder in your application to upload those forms and documentation that has been requested, then you do it through your account. Otherwise, use the web form. But don't wait for IRCC to send you those forms. They will not send those forms to you. Jayant says, NOC 90010, have more than 1.5 years of experience in Edmonton. Work permit is expiring in February. CRS is 394. Can I claim for 200 points as my role and responsibility for senior manager, but wage is low? Okay, some confusion here. First of all, 90010 is not a senior executive role that you would be looking for in terms of claiming 200 points. Secondly, you don't get 200 points for having work experience. You get 200 points for having an arranged employment. It could be LMIA or it could be LMIA exempt work permit that you might have and a job offer to go with it. Only if you have a work permit, LMIA exempt work permit, which is a closed work permit, and then you have a job offer, or if you have an LMIA, which is for a specific occupation code for a senior manager, which is usually starting with 000. So 00012, 00013, 00014, 15, and I think also 16. These are the NOC codes that are eligible for 200 points. 90010, I'm afraid, is not eligible for 200 points, even if you have the LMIO or job offer. And work experience certainly doesn't give you 200 points. It's the job offer which gives you the 200 points. Satish says, will IRCC factor in the current delay due to Canada post-strike, or we have to submit the solemn declaration if PR card is not delivered beyond 6 weeks of normal processing time? First of all, 6 weeks, I mean, as much as you would like to say, is a great way of saying that this is the average processing time. Actually not, it can go longer than that. And as far as IRCC is concerned, they will not take into consideration any strike delays. Plus, the solemn declaration is not required after 6 weeks. You need it after 6 months. So if you haven't received your PR card, even after 6 months, that is when you need your solemn declaration. So please, don't be in a rush to raise the solemn declaration. Getting your PR card after 1, 2, 3 months is quite common. A lot of people don't get it on time. So please don't be in a rush to do that solemn declaration. You require it only after 6 months. That's what I was saying. Okay, what else have we got? Tirth, sorry, there's no question here. Sairam says, I'm a PR, married in March. In July, wife came on visitor. We applied for inland spousal PR, got AOR, she is now pregnant, traveled back to India. Should I raise a web form about her return or pregnancy? So I'm not sure what is the web form going to be here for, because neither situation you need to inform IRCC about anything, whether about her return or about her pregnancy. Now, the only situation which will get complex in this situation here is that did you apply for inland spousal sponsorship or an outland spousal sponsorship? Because if this application was an inland spousal sponsorship, now this becomes very tricky, because in that case your spouse shouldn't leave Canada, because the processing has to be completed while she's inside Canada. So if your wife can still travel back to Canada, then she should return back to Canada so that your application can continue. But if you file for an outland spousal sponsorship, then it's not a problem. You don't even need to inform IRCC. But now that her place of residence has changed, and that is if she's not going to come back to Canada, then of course, yes, you must raise a form. You must inform IRCC that her place of residence is now changed. It's back in whichever country your spouse is from. And once your baby is born and your PR application is still not processed, then you also have to inform IRCC about the birth of your baby and also have your baby added to your PR application so that both mother and the baby can come to Canada as permanent residents. Foreign work permit didn't mention in SP. Can I add it PGWP? I am not sure what we are referring to here. I don't know what you mean by foreign work permit. If you're referring to foreign work experience, then it's very, very tricky. Why didn't you mention in your study permit? And that always can become a problem. Yes, you can add it in your postgraduate work permit, but you better have a good explanation, because that could potentially be considered as material misrepresentation, because based on that work experience which you did not disclose in your study permit, IRCC could have potentially taken a different decision with regards to approving your study permit. Therefore, it is considered as material misrepresentation, and please be careful when you are disclosing such things in your application, or rather not disclosing such things in your application. Mahesh says, my wife has intra-company transfer visa until July 27, but company has not assigned any project in Canada, even though visa approved 4 months ago. Can I drop visitor visa or spouse open work permit now? I'm not sure what you mean by drop. When you say drop, are you saying that you want to not come to Canada, or are you saying you want to submit an application? Because if you don't want to come, then of course you don't have to make an application. But if you are saying that you would like to come to Canada, then I'm going to assume that your spouse has not yet arrived in Canada. So if your spouse has not yet arrived in Canada on an intercompany transfer, means her work permit would have not been issued yet. Only her approval or a port of entry letter would have been issued. Then with that, you can apply for a spouse open work permit. However, if your spouse has already arrived in Canada and has a work permit, in that case, you would also need to provide she would have to provide from her employer the employment letter, which would include her job roles and responsibilities, as well as her pay slips, recent pay stubs, in order for you to apply for your spouse open work permit. So both different scenarios, you'll have to see which applies to you. We have submitted 3 support letters for common law application for PR and chats from one partner phone. Is that enough? Very difficult for me to say whether it is enough or not enough. And the reason for that is because I do not know the contents. I do not know what kind of documentation you have provided otherwise. As far as IRCC is concerned, and in such application, more is less. So no matter how much you provide, it is less. So from your side, when you're doing a spousal sponsorship application, or whenever you're making an effort to provide or rather to prove genuineness of a relationship, then in that case, the more the documents you provide, the better it is. I can't tell you whether it is enough or not, to be very honest, because I don't really know what all it included and what all is covered and how long it has been for. So if you still have an opportunity to submit additional documents, then please, by raising a web form, you can do so. PNP expiry 2025. I'm assuming that's what you mean is that nomination expiry is April 2025. AOR you have is 16th of November. What happens if I don't get my PR until April 2025 after my PNP is expired? Well, nothing happens. The whole purpose of your nomination is that you submit your PR application before the expiry. That's what's the fundamental purpose of that expiry date. And if you have submitted your PR application within the expiry date of your nomination, then you're good. Even if your nomination expires, it doesn't matter because your PR is already in process. So don't worry about it. Received AOR on October 28th. I worked for 13 months and lost my job recently. Should I update IRCC? Now, again, there's incomplete information here. I do not know what kind of an application you have submitted. Different applications require different actions in such situations. If this is an express entry application and you did not get points for your arranged employment, then in this case you don't have to do anything because your points in express entry have to do with your past work experience, and therefore your change of jobs or you having lost your job recently would not make any impact at all. If you have claimed points for arranged employment, now losing your job changes everything. Also, if this was a PNP application with under any employment streams or under PNP streams with employer support, then also all of this will change the entire circumstances. So therefore, yeah, different things will apply in different cases. Can I apply for spouse open work permit while my wife has a tier 4 and tier 5 job? Yes, you can. My dual intent LMIA is expiring in January, and I have applied for a closed work permit. Can I claim 50 points and applied status from February or after the closed work permit is approved? Well, you can claim 50 points now itself until the expiry of your work permit. After that, you would probably have to wait until your work permit is approved. Only then you will be able to claim the 50 points for your LMIA. No question here. Let's see what Shivam has to say. I have work experience but didn't mention it in my study permit. Can I add foreign work experience in my postgraduate work permit so that I can claim points? Well, this is what I was just saying earlier. Whenever you choose not to disclose your work experience in your study permit, it basically, first question is, why didn't you disclose? That is a big problem. We have already seen situations. I mean, I have consulted with several people who have had issues and they have received procedural fairness letters where IRCC has identified that they did not disclose the work experience. Now, under normal circumstances, what also happens is that a lot of officers are not going through the details of the previous application. Okay, in some cases the system will auto-generate, will auto-update the previous details in their screen, and they're able to see what was mentioned earlier, not mentioned earlier. In some cases, some officers are quite diligent. They are very strict. They like to go through all the details of your application, past and current. And those are the officers I really like and really love, because recently I'm seeing so many situations where they are going right into the depth of the work experience, even questioning the location of work, even questioning who the employer is, what the background of the employer is, the LinkedIn profiles, where are they matching, not matching. So in your case, I would be very careful if you do something like this. As I said, the scrutiny has gone up. The IRCC has become stricter than before. I am seeing an increased level of procedural fairness letters for people who have not made appropriate declarations or disclosures in the past, which they were supposed to. And as I was speaking earlier as well, that this is material misrepresentation. This is considered as information you should have disclosed in your study permit, because with this information, IRCC may have not approved your study permit at all based on that work experience. But you did not disclose it, so you misled the officer into giving you a decision, and therefore it can be misrepresentation. So please tread carefully with this kind of situation. I'm on open work permit and I'm studying high school diploma in Ontario through adult education school. Can I use it for HSW pathway once they open? Can I use what? Again, you asked me this question before. So if you're just saying you are studying high school diploma, you haven't completed, okay, and you are on an open work permit, please bear in mind, on an open work permit, you can only study for 6 months or less. Any program of study which is for longer duration cannot study that while you're on an open work permit. But you are saying this is through an adult education school, which basically I'm going to assume is a hybrid model, or you're studying online. Now, if it is an online and you do get awarded with a high school diploma, then that's absolutely fine. You will still be able to claim it. You will still be able to show your eligibility for your any program for that matter. I hope that's what you were asking. I mean, in Canada, can my spouse apply for Bridge Open Work Permit once she gets AOR for her spouse sponsorship PR application? Can I visit US valid spouse open work permit until May? Again, I'm confused. Now, what do you mean by valid? Can my spouse apply for Bridge Open Work Permit once she gets AOR for her spousal sponsorship PR? And then you say, can I visit valid spouse open work permit? If you are on a spouse open work permit, then how is your spouse in Canada applying for her Bridge Open? Extremely confusing situation here. I'm not able to understand your status, because if you obviously both are married, you yourself are on a valid spouse open work permit until, or are you saying that your spouse is on a valid spouse open work permit? Again, cannot understand, and I wouldn't want to comment and give you any information because that could completely be different. But just to give you this clarity, if your spouse has applied for permanent residence under the spousal sponsorship, so which basically means you, the principal sponsor, are either a permanent resident or a citizen. So whatever is her status in Canada, if you have an AOR, then she would be eligible to apply for an open work permit. It's not a bridge work permit, it's an open work permit, because bridge open work permit is applicable only for the economic pathways. So even though she has a valid spouse open work permit, that's what I'm going to assume here, then she can apply for another work permit or an open work permit. It's not bridge. So when you say bridge, it sort of confuses everything. And therefore, your spouse is eligible to apply for open work permit under the public policy, where spouses of people who have applied for the sponsorship can apply for open work permit. So yes, that is absolutely possible. Your spouse can apply. Even if you are visiting the US, that won't matter because it's a visit, as long as your primary residence continues to be Canada. I hope I've gotten the gist of what you were saying. Okay, work permit expired September 11th, applied for closed work permit online via LMIA on the same date, missed the UTC midnight deadline by 1 hour. Automated letter shows September 11th date. Is my status count as illegal now from September 11th? Should I go for restoration? Work permit expired September 11th, applied for closed work permit online via LMI on the same. Well, the fact that your letter says that it was submitted on the 11th of September, I would assume you are on the safe side of things. But if you are absolutely certain that you may have missed the deadline, then I would not withdraw this application. I would just, to be on the safe side, I would make another application with the restoration for the work permit. That's what I would do, just to be on the safe side. But if your acceptance letter or the confirmation of submission letter says the same date, then you might still be fine with this. So I'm not sure why the discrepancy of the date might happen, because usually the date of submission confirmation would change with the UTC time zone. So either you may have perhaps not calculated the UTC time zone correctly, or there could have been a system glitch. But in either case, while your current application can continue, you could just, as a matter of fact, just to be safe, you could potentially create another application so that you have that handy. Okay, guys, you got to stop doing the super chats because I only have so much of time and I will not be able to do any more questions. So please do not do any more super chats. I would appreciate it. Let me just get this on. Yeah. Okay, where did we go? Chetan says, okay, now on postgraduate work permit, did software development not be job for 1 year, 8 months and got laid off, was with no job for 5 months, then started gas station supervisor? Does this count for 2 years of NOCB? So with Canadian experience class or in Canadian experience, you could have mix and match of any kind of position, any kind of role, as long as they are all NOC 0, 1, 2, 3 and paid. You could have a mix and match of any kind of work experience. It's not a problem. I'm outland applicant. When I land with COPR, is it enough to show bank balance in Indian bank account? So what happens is that in most cases, they don't really ask you for your funds. Uh, and they haven't been strict if that's what you're asking. And so you don't really have to worry about. And if they do ask, you can always open your phone. There is free Wi-Fi at the airport. You can check in, you can check into your account and show them the availability of funds. So I wouldn't be too worried about it, but it's always better to have it on the safe side. Unclaiming sibling points after ITA if no score change. Well, I do not know what you're asking me. So that's a question. Unclaiming sibling points. Can you do it? Yes, you can do it. You can unclaim them, of course. No problem with that. I was given 2 years of postgraduate work permit instead of 3 after doing 1+1. I have applied online to extend it, attach my transcripts in college letters. What are the chances? Well, I would say 50-50, because if you were given 2 years, then IRCC was within its rights to give you only 2 years if that's what they chose to do, because giving you 3 years was not an automatic process. In many cases, you might even get 16 months if you did a 16-month program. So if they gave you 2 years, they were also within their rights. So I would say 50-50. You might find a very, very flexible and a officer who's really compassionate and might give you the extension of 1 year. But I would be say 50-50 in this case, to be very honest. The company has made me not be tier 2 category job letter under 60 to 100. However, same job in other companies fall under tier 4. Would it be a problem? So I do not know what you mean same job in other companies. What matters is what your company is giving. So for example, I'll give you an example. An executive vice president, you might say, is a person who's in a very senior position, should have 000 knock code. But if that executive vice president's job roles and responsibilities are that of an administrative assistant, then regardless of the title, the knock code would be the administrative assistant. So therefore, in your case, if the job description that you have from your company validates the knock code, then you don't have to worry about what other companies with that job title are doing in their company. So that's all you should be worried about, is the roles and responsibilities from your company. Syed says, if I work as a head cashier, how many points will I get for my PR, as I don't have any prior experience? I have done a 2-year postgraduate and a 4-year engineering. Well, you can check IRCC's website. You can look at their CRS calculator. There is also, if you Google for CIC CRS points grid, you can also check over there. In Canadian experience, if you are single for 1 year of Canadian work experience, you will get 40 points. If you are married or if you are in a common law relationship, for first year of experience, Canadian experience, you get 35 points. Any chance of getting expression of interest in Alberta under an opportunity stream? Well, I don't know, again, because the whole process of Alberta and their draws is very, very new, and they're not even announcing a lot of information or details about their whole system. Therefore, I wouldn't be able to even speculate what Alberta is doing with their opportunity system stream. And again, yeah, very difficult to speculate. It will only depend on them as to what is the labor market priorities indicating and where is the job located. You saying Alberta, if you are further away from Calgary or Edmonton, you may have a better chance. But yeah, very difficult to say how Alberta is going to react. For the remainder of the year, they hardly have any nomination quotas left. And for next year, with the slash of targets by almost 50-60%, I'm not expecting a lot of draws happening from any of the provinces for that matter. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Inland spousal sponsorship, got married in Canada in a small ceremony. Pictures do not have parents and not a traditional marriage. Is it okay? Well, technically, yes, of course. If you got married, it is fine. But the burden of proof is on you. Now, you have to prove, is this a genuine relationship? Because if IRCC feels that this is a relationship or that this is the marriage that you got into only for the purpose of getting your spouse a permanent resident or status, then this would not look nice. Mind you, a lot of people opt to do this. Sometimes they are contract marriages. Sometimes the purpose is primarily to get the other person a status. That's the reason they opt for these. I'm not saying everybody documentation as possible, as much details as possible to establish that you are in a genuine relationship. And also upfront, provide why your parents couldn't be together, or why your other friends or relatives are not there, and certainly definitely try and provide affidavits from friends and relatives, so that establishes this is a genuine relationship. No question there, no question here. Uh, Amar says, my CRS score is 446. I am on closed work permit. It's expiring in February. What are my options? I'm sorry, Amar, I really cannot talk about options because there will be so many more things to look at. And I really cannot give you options based on limited information. That's number one. Number two, you should be looking at it in the perspective of, are you eligible in certain PNP draws? Is your employer willing to support you? And then probably seek assistance from your employer to help you with the PNP programs. I was studying for my master's while my student visa was in process and completed it after receiving the visa. Can I include my master's in my express entry? Well, if while you were studying, while you applied for your study permit and you still hadn't completed your master's degree, then yes, of course, you can include it because you hadn't completed at that point of time. So even if you are asked by IRCC as to why were you not able to disclose this earlier, you can always show them proof that this education was only completed after you had applied for your study permit. So I think you should be fine with this one. May I know 50% reduction on PNP affects both express entry and non-express entry? Yes, of course. You see, it's got nothing to do with express entry or non-express entry. It impacts the provinces. Means if provinces, for example, Ontario earlier had a quota of 22,000 nominations, now they might have only 8,000 or so, give or take. I do not know what the number will be. We will only come to know of the number early next year. But similarly, if Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, they had allocations of 9,700 in 2024, now that would have gone down to 4,500-ish number. That will impact everything. That will impact express entry and non-express entry, both. Can my girlfriend come to Canada except study and visitor? Well, if your girlfriend has a visa to come to Canada, then yes, she can come to Canada. Absolutely. I'm an MBBS degree holder with 3.5 years experience in India, right now on a study permit, working as a personal support worker. What will be the best option for my PR? I'm sorry, Tarun, but as I said earlier, on these live streams, I cannot do individual profile assessments and tell you what would be a pathway for you. You should be looking at the IRCC website or the provincial nominee programs to see what your available options and pathways would be. The first is always going to be through the express entry, and then through the priority occupations, and then through the provincial nominee programs. You should see where your profile or your occupation is in demand, and then accordingly look at the employer supports who can help you with your PR pathways. My spouse open work permit expires February 25 and my wife finishes studies in December. If her postgraduate work permit takes 6 months, can I apply for spouse open work permit during processing or wait? How can I maintain status? Well, once your spouse applies for her postgraduate work permit, you can also apply for a spouse open work permit extension along with your wife's postgraduate work permit. It's just that your wife should be working at that point of time and should have at least 3 pay stubs. That is the requirement, that is the condition in order for your application to be processed and approved. Otherwise, you can always change your status to a visitor so that you can continue being in Canada. And then once your wife gets a work permit and she's working, has 3 pay stubs, and then you can apply for a work permit. You can also flagpole after your wife gets a postgraduate work permit, provided she's working and has 3 pay stubs. Working 3 years as financial advisor in Canada, 487 is a CRS. Didn't receive letter of advice, got offer as pharmacy assistant. Is it advisable? If you're asking me, is it advisable to take up a job as a pharmacy assistant? Well, that is a decision you have to make, Malini. I can't really tell you whether you should or not. Pharmacy assistant, the knock code is included as a priority occupation in express entry. So having 6 months of work experience as a pharmacy assistant may be a good idea. But as far as your MPNP is concerned, please take a look at the conditions and requirements of Manitoba's PNP programs, and only then take that call if it helps you. Postgraduate work permit is expiring in April 2025. Applied for OINP Masters job offer and will be eligible for CEC. what are the other options to extend my postgraduate work permit? There are no other options. There are very, very fixed options. Either you learn French, score NCLC 5 and apply for a closed work permit if you are an employer who supports you, or you get LMIA who then applies for, who then gives you, who gives you an LMIA and you apply for a closed work permit. If you have eligibility under the international student stream and you get the nomination, then the Ontario, after giving you the nomination, will give you the T13 work permit support form. Using that, you can then apply for a closed work permit. But these are pretty much the options to apply. I will complete 2 years on February, but work remotely from India for 3.5 months in 2024 due to family medical emergency. Should I accept ITA in early April 25 or wait until mid-June? Well, you can accept the ITA and complete your application at any point of time when you would be eligible to complete your work experience and submit your application. Ideally, and in order to avoid these circumstances, simply split your work experience and remove that period of gap so that you get your ITA only when you would be eligible, so that you're not wasting somebody else's ITA in that manner. But technically, accept and complete your ITA only once you are in a position to be complete. You're in a position that you can complete the eligible period of work experience within that 60 days that you will have after you get your ITA. CEC is 525, postgraduate work permit is expiring. Explain visitor record versus status restoration. I'm not sure what is there to explain. Unsure if I apply for visitor record on December 7, what happened if BGWP, if ITA after Jan 7? Explain visitor record. Well, explain, I do not know what you want me to explain. Well, explain basically here is that if you wish to maintain your status in Canada, you will apply for a visitor record before the expiry of your current status. Then you will be on an implied status as a visitor and you can continue being in Canada. But therefore, you will now lose your eligibility to apply for postgraduate work permit because your status is that of a visitor. Alternatively, you let your status expire. You would then have 90 days as a restoration period after the expiry of your work permit. And within this 90 days, if you get invited and you complete your application for PR and you have your AOR, you can now apply for restoration of status and a bridge open work permit. Working in Manitoba, have better chance with Saskatchewan as I have family and my master's from Saskatchewan. When to leave my Manitoba employer, at EOI stage or after nomination? Well, the idea is that if you are applying for nomination from Manitoba, you shouldn't leave Manitoba at all. So when you're asking me, when should I leave? I do not know what are you referring to. You shouldn't leave Manitoba at all. The whole point of you applying for the nomination is that you want to live in that province. And the province will be checking the fact of where you are currently. So I wouldn't recommend leaving at all at any stage. In context to some questions asked before, as we have applied for PR, can I not submit the web form stating that we got the IT and applied for PR? Will they not consider that and give work permit till PR application decision is made? Bhagwant, I'm not sure which question you are referring to, but if you are asking me this question about, what are you asking about in context to same question? I don't know to which question you're referring to. To be very honest, there are so many other questions and I don't really remember the situation or context there. Let me quickly see if I can look at the previous one. No, can't find it yet. Okay, this one I think. Due to passport expiry, applied for spouse work permit extension. Should have got it extended till December 2. Can I raise a web form now? You're saying what to do, previous extension applied. Again, a bit confused now with your situation, to be very honest. I can't find your new question now. Hold on. Oh boy, I lost your second question now. Hey there. In context to the same question, can we apply? Well, the point would be to make a second application and then also raise a web form and let them know about the previous application that you have submitted. And if they accept it, then they will approve your first application itself. If they don't, then at least you have the second application, which is in process. I'll be very honest with you, I'm quite confused with your situation with the previous one and the question that you asked me now, so you'll have to forgive me. And what you can do is, after we finish the video today, you can post the whole detail in the comment section below, so then I can then come back and refer to this question and give you more clarity, if I at all haven't been able to do it now. Guys, I really request you, please do not do super chats. I will not be able to complete, and therefore you would not like the idea that you did a super chat and then those were not answered. So I'm letting you know now, please do not do super chat. There is a trigger, there is a ticker which is ongoing, which is telling you not to do it, and yet you're doing it. So you'll be the one who'll be feeling all left out. So please don't do that at this point of time. Hi, will two different one-year grad certificate diploma courses combined will qualify for 3-year postgraduate work permit under the new IRCC regulation? Well, IRCC hasn't said or hasn't made any changes to that. So therefore, yes, I would assume that 1+1 would, stacking programs as they're referred to, would still be eligible for a 3-year work permit. I'm an open work permit. My wife, spouse open work permit refused twice. Reason the tier spouse doesn't qualify. Should I apply again or wait for the PR work permit expiring December 2025? Well, what you should do is you should apply for the GCMS notes or ATIP notes and understand exactly why your application was refused. There is a high possibility that you are not providing correct documentation, one of which is to provide roles and responsibilities letter along with your application, along with the 3 pay stubs. So apply for the GCS, you can understand the reason, and then probably look at reapplying if you can. I've got my OINP letter filled from my company. The company address is USA since they have only satellite office in Canada. No physical address in Canada. Do I need Canada's office address? Yes, of course you need Canada's office address. Otherwise, Ontario doesn't have any way of validating whether this employer is based in Canada and whether what kind of criteria would be applicable inside Toronto GTA area or outside Toronto GTA area. How will you be getting your points based on the work location? All of that will matter. So yes, your location, your office address in Ontario is very, very important. Can I add my spouse after I receive 600 points? If yes, can you explain the process? She's here with me right now. My score is 10 without accounting. There is no process to explain. It's quite simple. You will inform the province. Some provinces might accept it, some provinces might not, because lately, a couple of times, the province has refused it. And in one case, they've even cancelled the nomination. So please be very careful when you try to do that, because because you're trying to add your spouse. It's basically called gaming the system, if you want to call that, or trying to manipulate the system, because if your wife had to be added in your application to start with, you would have not received that invitation to start with. So therefore, provinces are not taking an objection to that. And I've noticed in the recent past 1 or 2 cases where the things went really bad. So always approach and ask the province if they will allow you to do that or not. Oh, for some reason, I'm not able to. Okay, I can't. Finally did that. Okay, Rohit says, do you think there is a chance for FSW candidates based out of Canada? We don't have relatives inside Canada, or considering the new caps on immigration quotas. There is a possible chance, because the in Canada focus does include the mention of FSWs and FSTC categories. So there is a mention, and there is a possibility that those can be included, but there is no way of saying. I think they will continue with the CAC in the time to come, and there could be a possibility they might include the FSWs, but the possibility looks bleak. There could be an odd draw in the year, to be very honest, but can't say when that might happen. I'm on work permit, applied for work permit for my wife, for minor kids. Best way is visit visa and convert to student to apply for study permit. Okay, when you put in your question like this, it becomes very difficult for me to understand, and I'm trying to go through the questions quickly so I can get to all of them. But I'm on work permit, applied work permit for my wife. For minor kids, best way is visit visa and convert to student or apply for study permit. If study permit, do I need to show GIC? So you're asking for the application for your children, minor kids. So if your minor kids are below the age of 5 years, then you have to apply for a visitor visa. And if the kids are above the age of 5, then you must apply for a study permit. It's not an optional thing here. That's how IRCC basically has directed. And if you don't apply for a study permit upfront or right from the get-go, then they might even refuse the application. That's number one. Number two, GIC is not required for minor kids. You just need to show that you have sufficient funds to manage the entire family once they are in Canada. Applied under CEC, received AOR in October, and I lost my job after 13 months. Should I update IRCC? Claim points for only 1 year. No, you don't have to update IRCC if you have lost your job, because the points you're getting is for the work experience you already gained. If you have lost your job, it doesn't make any difference at all. Job experience gained during fake extension counts in CEC? Yes, it does. I am on postgraduate work permit. Can I apply for work permit for my wife? Yes, you can apply for a work permit for your wife. If you are currently working and you have at least 3 pay stubs, then you can apply. My work permit expires next year, August. Score will be 513 and get ITA after I leave country. Can I continue my PR application from my home country? Yes, you can. So the question is that can you continue with your PR application even if you get your ITA and you leave Canada? Yes, there is no problem with it. You can continue with your application. You will just need to update IRCC with the change of your address and your location. Guys, please do not do super chats. I really will not be able to complete and you would not like it. So please do not do any more super chats. Can I claim 50 points under the LMIA? I moved an year ago under ICT since I was doing masters. I moved under open work permit instead of closed work permit. I worked in IT for the same company. Okay, very confusing question because there are so many things here which is not clear, and therefore I will not be able to give you a clear answer. But I will just look at the first portion of your question. Can you claim points with an LMIA? Yes, if you have a valid LMIA and it's under a valid knock code tier 0123, then you can claim 50 points for it. For the remainder of your question, honestly, I couldn't really understand what you were trying to say. I'm working as apprentice fire alarm technician. Do experience count for CEC? If I get my fire technician license, does it add 50 points as it is in the certificate of qualification list? If you get a certificate of qualification and if it is in the list of COQs, yes, you would get additional 50 points. And you are working as an apprentice, that is all right, as long as your job roles and responsibilities validate that. And the province that you are working in allows for you to work as an apprentice without any licensing or certification, then yes, that will count as well. Received job offer for NOC 94107, the Ontario employer job offer. In demand skill stream require minimum wage of 22 per hour, and my employer offers 20 per hour. Will you qualify? No, you will not qualify. Unfortunately, that minimum wage requirement must be met. That is the minimum criteria for the stream. An implied status through closed work permit application. Can I work under the open work permit rules which expired, or do I have to adopt the closed work permit rules? I do not know what you mean by open work permit rules or closed work permit rules here. I'm working at my old job until the decision for closed work permit. Okay, all right, I get it now. So your your status was on a closed work permit. You have applied for an open work permit. So when you are on an implied status, the conditions of your previous status or a work permit will continue. If your previous work permit was a closed work permit, you are continuing to comply with the old work permit's condition, which is a closed work permit, until your new work permit has been approved. Okay, so that's how it goes. Can I reissue my Indian work experience letters because the letters I submitted while my study permit application has limited information and duties? Can I submit new letters? Yes, absolutely. There is no problem with it. As long as it's the same employer, same work period, you can do that. No problem with that. CRS went to 449 today. Still got 2-year PGWP left. Should I stay hopeful? I really cannot tell you what kind of scores will be invited. You will only have to follow the trends. You'll have to keep an eye on the scores as and how they happen, because what matters is how many invitations are being issued by IRCC. And that's what will decide what will be the draw. PNP Outland, all info is passed except security. told VO Vancouver why they changed Sydney to VO to Vancouver? Well, application processing offices can change for any number of reasons. There's no clear answer to that. You can order GCMS notes to see if there are any notes that is made by officer there. My studies finish on December 7th, but my completion letter arrives on January 12th. Can I work full time between December 7th and January 12th? My studies finish on December 7th, but you cannot work full time, but you can work as per your study permit allowance, which is 24 hours per week. You can only work full time after you have applied for your postgraduate work permit. And also you cannot work at all from the date you get your completion letter until you apply for postgraduate work permit. No question here. Saranpreet says, my study permit is expiring in April. Should I wait until next year to apply for an extension? Should I apply for it now? What is the processing time? Well, the processing time roughly is about 3 to 4 months, and you can apply for it at any point of time before the expiry of your study permit. Bear in mind that you would be on an implied status, and therefore you could continue studying. But if you wish, you can, and if you have the required documentation, you can even make an application this month, towards the end of this month as well. Degree is WES evaluated. Did the degree in my native country, it was an international degree. Should I get a letter from the university to prove long distance education? You don't have to prove, you don't have to get a letter to prove it was a long distance education. Simply in your express entry, in your education section, after the name of your college or university, in brackets just write remote learning or distance learning or long distance education. That's absolutely fine. You can also add a brief letter of explanation. If your institution is willing to write you that kind of a letter, you can also get that. Postgraduate work permit expiring in August 25, working in a company in Canada, and they informed they can provide with IMP. Are there any changes to IMP, years of work permit I can get? Well, at this point of time, there are no changes to IMP. It all depends. IMP here stands for International Mobility Program. It all depends under which stream of IMP are they going to be applying for your work permit. And they could potentially get you a work permit between 1 to 3 years. It all depends what company it is, what kind of previous record they have with IRCC, and most importantly, under which stream of IMP will they be applying for your work permit. That is what will matter. Oh, I think we already done this question. After I apply for non-express entry IMP, if I get desired French score, submit a new express entry application. Goal is to live in BC after PR. Yes, you can, even if you have submitted a PR application with Saskatchewan. But if you're able to get a better express entry score, you can absolutely make your profile. You can create your profile in express entry. And if you get invited, you can complete your application through express entry. Sai Teja, nothing here. Okay. CRS score is 503, applied for spouse open work permit. Do you think the scores will come down in the coming years under CEC category? Yes, I absolutely believe the scores will come down. I cannot predict, I cannot speculate what the scores will come down. As to what can you do? Well, you can only try and see if there is any opportunity for you to improve your scores. Francophone, Francophone as in the learning French as a second language is a good option. You can try and add those extra points if possible. I do not know what your profile is, so I can't really say what else can you do, because that would need me to understand your profile better. But if you have any option to improve your scores, by all means do that. Wife applied for postgraduate work permit and spouse open work permit extension in May, and now spouse open work permit extension rejected, but postgraduate work permit still waiting. Should I wait until spouse receives PGWP? Does she need full-time permanent job? Well, yes, you have to now wait till your spouse will get her postgraduate work permit, and then you can apply for your spouse open work permit again. There could be a reason that maybe your spouse was not working or was not employed at the time you made the application, because one of the primary requirement is that your spouse is working, and you provide the employment letter, reference letter with job roles and responsibilities, and 3 pay stubs. So once your spouse gets the postgraduate work permit and you are able to provide these documentation, you can certainly apply for your open work permit again. Until that time, you cannot work, unfortunately. Wife has an ICT visa until July 7, but company not assigned any project. I think we've already done this question right in the beginning. As I explained earlier, if you have a port of entry letter for your spouse, you can apply for your spouse open work permit. If your wife is already in Canada, then you will need to provide the spouse's employment letter with the job roles and responsibilities and the 3 pay stubs, and only then you will be able to apply for your open work permit. In this case, if your wife is already in Canada on a work permit but not working because there is no job assigned, then you might not be able to apply for it at this point of time. Since she came on visitor visa, if company assigns projects, then she go out of country and came to have work permit. I am sorry, I don't understand. Once she came on visitor visa, if company assigned projects, then she go out of country and came to have work permit, LMIA. I'm sorry, just cannot understand what you're talking about here. Uh, uh, if your wife already has a visa, intra-company transfer visa, then I don't see why they would be giving a LMIA work permit. Uh, and did you say she came on a visitor visa? Yeah, too many. Yeah, just cannot understand the question. I apologize. Well, that was all that we had. Uh, you're saying refer to the previous chat. I honestly don't remember the previous chat that you have mentioned, so I can't really give you an answer to that one. Please, what you can do for me is, after we have finished today's video, come back in the comments box, put the whole detail question in the comments, and I will try and come back and answer your question later today. Yeah, that's already done. Right. Thank you so much. That's basically all I have for you today. That's as much as my throat would allow me. Hopefully, we will do this again sometime next week. Thank you. If you wish to book an appointment, because I know I've not been able to answer a lot of your questions, please, I know so many of your questions have gone unanswered. After the video, please post your question in the comment section. I will, during the whole course of the day today, I will come back and try and answer more questions as much as I can. But if you wish to discuss your application, your case one-on-one, so that we can understand and have a better insight into your background, then this is the link. Please, by all means, use this link, make an appointment online, and then we can understand more details about your background and your application. Thank you for joining in. I appreciate your having taken the time. I wish you guys all the very best, and I hope that we can see the scores going down, the draws happening on a regular basis, so that we can all have an opportunity. Thank you for joining in. I wish you guys all the very best, and I shall see you soon.